Today is January 15th, a day set aside in Nigeria to remember armed forces personnel who made the supreme sacrifice to keep this nation as one. The day is known and referred to as the Nigerian Armed Forces Remembrance Day. The day also honors veterans of the World War I and II, as well as the Nigerian Civil War. A series of events are put together to commemorate this day, one of which is already underway in Abuja. We shall be bringing you live proceedings of the event, but in the interim, we have a retired Army Colonel, Hassan Stan-Labo, who has now joined us to discuss the commemoration, especially the sacrifices of the fallen armed forces personnel. Good morning, Colonel Hassan. Good morning.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me once again.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And happy World Army Remembrance Day.
Yes.
It's for good people like yourself.
Same to you.
All right. Thank you. But Colonel, talk to us about the significance of this day. We've had it for 52 years, since 1970, after the Nigerian Civil War ended. How has it been? Is it just something perfunctory? Or do you think that every time on January the 15th, when we celebrate or commemorate this day, there is good news to veterans and, men of the army in terms of their welfare and in terms of how the government is looking after them?
Thank you so much. Like you rightly said in your intro, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day is a day that has been set aside, to show recognition, to remember the fallen heroes, recognize them, put them in their proper place, tell them thank you for all the great job they've done in keeping this country together, and of course, ensuring that we are alive by their giving their own lives. It's a great sacrifice which I would say they have made on our behalf. Even those of us who had participated in several operations and still came back alive, we know that we are not just alive because we are better off than those who have gone. Some of them actually laid down their lives for some of us. I know of situations where in the course of attack, soldiers have dived to push me down as an officer so that my head could go down for bullets to pass, only for such soldiers to even take on the bullets, and today they are dead. I cannot claim to be better than such guys. So it's a great sacrifice, I must say, they did for us. All right? Having said that, I would say too that the Nigerian Army has come a long way, right from pre-colonial days through colonial times and so on. And what you see going on today in Abuja is a replica of the 11/11 you know of with the British Empire. And so, that's 11th of November, which they had always set aside to celebrate the World War I and World War II fallen heroes. All right? We've been part of the British arrangements, like they are our colonial masters, but on independence and with our sovereignty well marked, it has become necessary for us to project our own, more so that we went through a civil war. And so eventually January 15 emerged, which was the day our own civil war ended, January 15, 1970. And we have used that date as our own 11/11 or our own date to mark and to show recognition to our fallen heroes. All right? Like I said, the army has grown from leaps and bounds, from the old colonial army we used to know, dominated by, would I say, illiterate soldiers and so on and so forth. We have grown both in terms of manpower. We have grown both in terms of sophistication of the manpower itself. Looking at the quality of entrants now coming in as recruits or as officers and so on. The army has really, really moved far and ahead. Okay, we have so positioned ourselves. When I say the army, I'm talking in generic terms. I'm referring to the armed forces anyway. All right? Where the Nigerian armed forces has gotten to a stage where I would say it has really positioned itself as a power within the sub-region, as a power within the region itself, even of Africa. All right? And we don't just say this, we have been able to prove this in several occasions, and where the opportunities have arisen. We've paid our dues in Liberia, Sierra Leone, the Bakassi, Darfur, you mentioned it, okay? We have participated in several international operations. At a point, we became, I think, the third troops contributing country to the UN peacekeeping arrangements globally, and so on. So it's been a very, very, very fantastic story for the Nigerian armed forces, all right? Having said that, to what extent has the Nigerian nation shown appreciation to its veterans? I think in that area, we have really not fared very well. Not until of recent, when the president came on board and immediately was able to make some adjustments to pension. I think that was way back 2015 or 2016. I can't be too sure when he effected those adjustments. The average veteran was living like a destitute, I would say. Even though the president has done so much, but I think a lot still needs to be done. For instance, as we speak, the minimum wage adjustments that just took place, as we speak till now, the veterans have still been owed about 24 months arrears that is yet to be paid. You must have been aware that of late, some few days back, you must have seen veterans all over the place in all the 36 states, you know, demonstrating and so on, but peacefully anyway. Having said that, too, another area in which the country could show its appreciation is to see that the National Health Insurance Scheme, which currently operates in the armed forces, be fully extended to the veteran community. What do I mean by fully extended? Right now, veterans enjoy that facility, but it does not have 100% coverage, which to me does not really make much sense. All right? Veterans and people who are already in their old age, we are talking of guys in their 60s and even 70s. The bulk of the health issues which they are presently going through all came out of operations, be it hearing defects, be it internal organ issues, and so on. It might surprise you that no internal organ issue is on board as part of the National Health Insurance Scheme that is covered for veterans. None. So if you have lung issues, heart disease issues, you mention it, you are on your own. How much is that soldier's pension, which is just some peanuts, that you want him to start spending such amount of money taking care of his internal organs? Is it dialysis and so on and so forth? I think the nation should be more appreciative. And this is the area where I expect people who call themselves politicians, people who say we have signed a social contract with the people to take care of their security and welfare. This is the area where I expect them to lay emphasis. We are approaching 2023. We want to hear those who want to be president to be talking. What is your program for the veteran community? We should be discussing issues. Unfortunately, our politics is not tilted in that direction. It's how many billion pounds you can move around with and distribute money. All right? Moving on from there, you begin to look at other aspects in which you think the country could show its appreciation. There is what we call the Security Debarment Allowance. The Security Debarment Allowance is an allowance that is paid out to retirees, and it is meant to debar them from using the skills acquired from the military, okay, in engaging the Nigerian state negatively. This huge amount is paid out to retirees. It's a common phenomenon in civilized armies all over. We are making an attempt to practice it here. However, it has come with so much controversy because those who are supposed to do this are busy trying to be funny about it. That allowance must be paid out to soldiers. It is important. We have a war ongoing right now in the country, so that soldiers are not lured into this war because they've got the skills to be mercenaries. They've got the skills to be armed robbers, and so on. We should be able to pay them this money and let them be mindful of the fact that the Nigerian state has taken care of me, and I cannot go into that. It is important.
Thank you, Colonel. Let me come in here.
Yes, it is important.
You know, earlier on in
all right,
your first...
I could go on and on and on and on.
Yes, I know. I trust you. Earlier on in your first answer, you talked about how much progress the Nigerian Armed Forces had made, that they'd come on leaps and bounds. And towards the end of your discussion there, you did talk about the negative aspects of current active duty. If you were to cast your mind back to when you were first recruited into the Armed Forces and compare that to the sense of patriotism that many people may face now, don't you think that it's a lot harder for somebody who wanted to engage in active duty, somebody who wanted to join the armed forces? Don't you think that with the fact that there's a huge religious insurgency in certain parts of this country, one that sometimes feels as though the bandits or the terrorists are winning, surely it hasn't really these last couple of years been a positive thing? It hasn't been a great place to be within the Nigerian Armed Forces. Aside from money, what else do you think needs to be done to really kickstart that level of patriotism? Because I couldn't blame somebody who would feel discouraged from joining the armed forces. What would they be looking forward to? What is there really for them if they survive active duty? And you're saying that many of your comrades haven't been paid or haven't been paid their dues. Does that not mean that as we look ahead to the future, less and less people would actively want to join the Nigerian Armed Forces?
Sorry, I really didn't get it clearly, but if you could just summarize it in 2 or 1 sentence, I think I would do a response.
Let's
please be a bit louder.
No problem. We can both summarize our responses. No problem. What I was saying was, you said that the Nigerian army or the Nigerian armed forces have developed well over the years. And what I'm saying is currently, that can't be accurate because there's a huge religious insurgency in certain parts of this country, and there's a religious war that many people would say Nigerian armed forces are losing. So what do you think needs to be done aside from money to make people feel more patriotic, make people want to join the armed forces despite the obviously bleak situation that they're facing?
Adequate arrangements should be put in place to ensure that in case anything goes wrong with the individual, his family wouldn't feel his absence so much. We know you can never replace a dead man to his family, but there are things we could do to cushion whatever the impact of his absence may be. If, for instance, I had become a fallen hero in all the 4 international operations I've been involved in, and I know my kids definitely will be able to be availed with educational opportunities, even up to PhD level. I know definitely my wife along the line wouldn't end up a destitute, and so on. I know definitely there will be a house for my family, and so there are lots of things, okay? But we find a situation where at times when such calamities come in, the women are left on their own. Forget all what you find on paper, except if now some deliberate attempts have been made to see that those things are actually implemented. A situation where you begin to find housewives carrying placards all over the place, you know, and saying all sorts of funny things about my husband's entitlement and so on, does not really speak well about our image. It's not just about the January 15 celebration where we go to release birds who even dare themselves to tell you I will not fly because you haven't done the right thing, you know, and things like that. So it is important that some of these things are really addressed. They are really addressed in toto, okay? When a veteran is leaving service and he does not have a roof over his head and his pension cannot afford to even take care of him, I expect that there should be an instrumentality, okay, on ground that allows for even members of the public who are interested in assisting to be able to move in resource into such a platform, which eventually could, crystallize into the formation of, say, a mortgage scheme where retirees or veterans could be able to access and get some reasonable amount of money to be able to put on, even if it's a 2 or 3 bedroom flat, at highly subsidized rate. That is to say, even say 5% of their monthly income. And by the time that man attains the age of, say, 80, it is written off because it's actually meant to be a sort of, a philanthropic gesture and things like that. Okay? There should also be opportunities, for instance, where rebates at shopping complexes could be established such that if I walk into a shopping complex as a veteran and I'm able to identify myself as a veteran, I enjoy some level of discount, reasonable level of discount. All this as part of showing appreciation to me for who I am. I once sat in a plane somewhere in the US some years back where a few chaps who were transiting, okay, back to their camp, their jumpers, they were just coming out of the jumping school, and immediately they entered the aircraft, everybody was clapping and they stood up and gave them a standing ovation. I was shocked. Just some 5 bloody private soldiers, and you could imagine the standing ovation that went with them. And when they eventually sat down, fine, everybody sat down. I felt so proud as a soldier. We are not yet sensitized in our society to such extent. But with time, I hope we shall get there. All right? The veteran needs to be really recognized. He lays down his life for your country. He lays down his life for you to be alive.
All right, Colonel, that's very well said, and I appreciate the fact that you have challenged the political class, the politicians, to say to them that instead of moving about with bullion vans, they should begin to think of those who actually sacrifice their lives to keep the country together, as you said. But then, if you look at our trajectory, particularly in the last 22, 23 years. From 1999, when democracy returned, you see that about 14 years plus out of the 22 years that we have had of democracy, we have had generals leading the nation. President Obasanjo between 1999 and 2007, and of course General Muhammadu Buhari from 2015 up till now, and of course it will be there till 2023. Those are not just generals, but ex-head of state. So if you're challenging politicians who are coming in 2023, how about speaking in specific terms about the fact that it is the generals who have ruled this country and who are still ruling this country in the person of General Muhammadu Buhari, who ought to set the tone that politicians that are coming in 2023, should work on as it affects the welfare and the due recognition that veterans and the army and the armed forces in general, should be enjoying. Don't you think that that's the proper thing to judge them by?
Well, I would say the past heads of states, or past presidents, that have been retired generals, they have tried to an extent, but I think maybe they got caught up in the entire political web, so to speak, and they couldn't really go far deep, the depth of their response to what the realities are within the veteran community. I would say wasn't that much deep, okay? We really hope that as we move on and probably we begin to have even civilians coming on board as presidents, they'll be sensitive enough seeing what's happening in other climes And of course, too, given their own level of exposure and so on, I think they'll be able to do a great deal far better. A part of the problem we've always had as a nation, and this is general, is the fact that I think we've always had this leadership problem. When you continue to have, when you run a political system which on its own runs a leadership recruitment system that is defective and often throws up at times some of your worst material into leadership positions, you begin to find a lot of problems in managing your affairs as a nation. But I think with time, we'll hope this time around, we shall probably be seeing clearly to be able to pick people that would really lead us. Because so far with what I'm seeing, I'm yet to see a presidential material emerging. All I'm seeing are the same stuff which we've all been criticizing. We pray we shall have better materials coming up.
Oh, that's an interesting one, Colonel. If we expand the discussion, you do not think that of all, well, it looks like there's only about 2 or 3 people that have declared their intention to run. We know there are a few other names that that have been mentioned who are interested in the presidential election for next year. But then from those who have declared already, it looks to me like you are not impressed at all. Are you saying that categorically saying that there's no presidential material in those who are parading themselves as the next president in waiting?
It's my opinion, and I think I'm entitled to it.
Absolutely.
I'm yet to see a Nigerian 21st century presidential material. I'm yet to see one, I must be frank with you. I don't want us to make the same mistakes we've made all along. I was part of that mistake, I confess. I stuck out my neck, and today I regret it. And I don't want to make the same mistake again. However packaged some of those individuals may be, however attractive some of them may be, I don't want a repeat situation. I think we've got the stuff amongst us, and we're still waiting for them to come out, please. I'm yet to see a presidential material.
All right, thank you so very much, Colonel. I mean, that's a good one there. I was going to ask you if what you refer to, if you participated in that decision or effort as one of those who are said to own Nigeria, and many of them are said to be military, generals. So let me ask you in specific terms. So, are you part of those who own Nigeria, and you expressing regret that the people that you have chosen in the past have not done very well? Where are we headed? What sort of presidential material should we expect next year? Is it somebody that will be friendly to the military and to the armed forces, or should we also expect that those who are said to own Nigeria will also come up with a name, maybe a next general, for example?
I'm not too sure I got you right, but or I got you clearly rather. But the point I was trying to make is that I was part of the entire process. I participated wholeheartedly. I stuck out my neck. I believed in all the candidates which the present administration put forward. I supported it. I felt here was the Messiah, and so on and so forth. But I think we all know what the truth is today. That's why we are human beings. Only God is perfect. I cannot draw back and say I was not part of those who say, look, elect him. I was part of it. I campaigned for it. I supported it. But like it is, I am disappointed. A good number of Nigerians are disappointed. But what can we do? It's a democracy. We can only wait for the tenure to be over. And then, of course, we'll come on board with yet again another candidate. But like I said, I haven't seen one yet. The day I see one, probably I'll begin to support. If I don't see one, I remain by the corners and watch and pray that maybe something good happens. But Nigeria needs fixing, and we need somebody that can fix this country. We need somebody that can fix this country. Nigeria is sick. Nigeria is sinking. Nigeria is losing all its plus.
I mean, it sounds like you don't have a lot of faith in the current batch of candidates that have started to reveal themselves. And as you said, you're entitled to that opinion. But as someone with a very strong military background and somebody who wants the best for Nigeria, I would like to ask you, do you believe in democracy? Do you think that democracy is working for Nigeria, or would you prefer to see Nigeria return to military rule? Do you have a preference?
I believe in democracy. I believe in democracy. I'm a Democrat. Even when I was still in the military, I was one of those few officers who never believed in coup d'etats. And I personally frowned against it. I believe in democracy, but I believe we could also have real hot-handed individuals that can rule this country through democracy and still put us on the right footing. All the individual needs to be is to be disciplined, okay? Have the intellectual capacity, all right? Have a vision and a mission, and be able to drive the entire process through, all right? You ask me whether should they be high-handed? Yes. The Nigerian society needs a high-handed fellow. Needs somebody who can really move it. Cruelly, okay? But we need to fix this country. And Nigeria is not a country which you can fix with kid gloves. Corruption has gone beyond our body. It is right in our marrow, not just in the bone. What are we talking about? We must fix this country. We can't bequeath this country, the situation in which it is now, to our children. If we know what it is, some of us should be ashamed to look at our kids. I have a son who can ask me, Dad, what was your role in all this mess? If you were not part of the mess, did you cry out? And so on. Did you speak out? And with the boldness with which our kids are growing today, they will definitely ask some of us. If we are not careful, our children will spit on our grave. I mean spit, if not urinate on our grave. This country
all right, Colonel. Yeah, that's
we need leaders that can fix this country.
Thank you. That's very well said. But let me ask you this very quick one. Do you have anybody in mind or a set of Nigerians that fit the bill that you have described? And where do you think such a person should come from now that we are, moving steadily into the political arena towards 2023?
I will not mention anybody, but there are young technocrats out there that have what it takes to fix this country. I was thinking that this administration would have been able to project most of those technocrats. They exist everywhere, in any part of the country, north, south, east, west, south, south, whatever. They exist. Find good, young, educated Nigerians, intellectually sound. Since after retirement, I've run into a good number of them. And I just shake my head and say, wow, look at guys that can run this country for us. By now, I expect that these elders who are prevailing over the affairs of this country will see beyond their nose and begin to project these guys by bringing them into ministerial positions and so on, so that you begin to groom them, bringing them into, the various MDAs, departments and agencies and so on, so that we begin to groom our leadership towards, at the end of the day, producing sound leader at the strategic level for us. But unfortunately, I'm not saying that. You go to the cabinet, it's dominated by people that are in their 70s and 80s, all right? All analog. Some have never pressed laptops in their lives, and so on. These are not 21st century cabinet materials, all right? In most cases, I repeat, presidents come out of cabinets, come out of governors, come out of the technocrats community, and so on. Because these are all grooming platforms, all right? But when you begin to have the wrong individuals in these places, what do you do? What do you do? We have to look beyond. Look, we must be looking at a futuristic Nigeria. This country must be fixed, whether we like it or not. We must fix this country. We cannot allow a few elites who think because they are money bags to hijack this country and do away with the... No way. No way. If it means galvanizing the youths, we shall do that. This country must be fixed. And I tell the Nigerian youths, this country belongs to you. If you allow those in their 80s and 70s to mess it up for you, you are on your own. You bloody well take over this country, hold it. It's a democracy. Go into politics immediately. Go into politics. Come together. The NSAS was enough to show the whole of us in this country how organized you can be. And we have seen it. You are no longer the lousy type we thought you were. You have shown it to us. We saw how you organized you were in NSAS. You taught even the NLC how to organize, what's it called, protest. You don't just sit down and watch your country go down the drain. This country belongs to you. How many years do some of us say have to live? How many years? You still have 50 years, 60 and 70 years to live. You don't just sit and watch things go down the drain. Speak out. Speak to leadership. You elected them. They are your servants. You are the masters. Power belongs to the people,
Understood.
not to the leaders. In advanced climes, political leaders will be afraid of those of the voters. Here it is voters who are afraid of political leaders.
That needs to change.
It can't be the other way around.
Well,
this is
thank
a democracy.
you very much.
And
thank
democracy
you very
has
much,
come to stay in
retired
Nigeria.
Colonel Hassan Stan-Labo. Thank you very much for what has been an impassioned conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining
really
us.
Thank you enough. Thank you indeed.